Welcome everyone to episode 104 of Raw Sport. We're back with another huge episode with a very special guest with WBO President Mr. Gustavo. Welcome to the show, buddy. How's things?
How are you, buddy?
Good, thank you. Huge night of boxing. We just saw at a historical event at Times Square. Give us your thoughts on the night.
I'm currently in Vegas for the Inoue Cardenas show on Sunday, and also Rafael Espinosa against Vasquez, top ranked show with Ohashi Promotions taking promotions in. We were watching the fights earlier today from live on Times Square. The production looked amazing, and the telecasts, the guests, the fights not so much. I was a little bit disappointed. I think the best fight of the night was Teofimo against Barboza. Teofimo looked good, sharp, fast, accurate. Barboza tried his best. Teo is in another level. Teo's really elite talent. Barboza was coming off consecutive impressive wins against Ramirez and Catterall. But Teo, I think Teo was the best fight of the night. The other two fights, I was not that attentive to them. I was a little bit busy on the phone talking to other people about the fights taking place on Sunday, so I couldn't appreciate much. But as per reported on social media, the fights didn't perform to what was expected and the hype. So, but that happens in boxing. You got good nights, bad nights. It is what it is.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys had a interest in that first fight with Teo with the welterweight WBO junior welterweight title on the line.
Junior welterweight.
Yeah. So, in terms of next steps for Teo, where do you see his next move going?
So Teo just discharged his mandatory against Barboza. We therefore eliminate the interim title. As per the WBO policy of only having one champion per division, so the titles are consolidated. Now Teo is the only champion in that division. Now Teo is in a voluntary stage, so now he can either fight any other top 15 rated contenders in the WBO junior welterweight ratings, or try to unify. So let's see what happens. He wants to fight Ennis. Ennis is a welterweight, so Teo would have to move to 147 to fight Ennis. So if he moves up, he can request like a special permit, fight at 147. If he wins, he has 10 days thereafter, after the fight, to determine which title he keeps, either the welterweight or the junior welterweight. Or if he loses, the committee reserves the right to either declare the title vacant or allow him to retain the title, considering that he's moving up, pursuing a third world title. So we will have to see. Remains to be seen what's going to happen with Teo.
Okay, we just witnessed a spectacle in the world of boxing never to be seen before. Times Square, one of the most iconic places on earth, taken over by ring, the entrances in taxis, cars, stuff we've never seen before in the boxing world, or I might even go further and say in any sport, the way it was done. I was on social media the whole night on X, just like we are live now on X, and a lot of the feedback was, "Where's the crowd?" Without a crowd, like, it really took out the atmosphere, and a lot of the perspective was that it impacted some of the fighters, because some of the fighters need that crowd, need that energy, need that momentum. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's the first time we've ever witnessed a boxing show of that magnitude being conducted in the middle of Times Square. So it's a first off. So you always have those the expectations of what will the event be, right? So I think they had some logistical issues. And that will be normal, considering the implications, the magnitude, the place where the event was going to be conducted, outdoor, all the logistical complexities that such an event could be subject to. So as to the fans, well, I think the card from top to bottom, I think it was great on the sense of the profile of the fighters. You got Ryan Garcia with a huge social media following, coming up from a controversial fight, the positive anti-doping test. Rolly always, and he's a character, always in good fights. Haney making his comeback fight against Ramirez, who's always a tough competitor. You also have Tio, who is a character as well, and Barbosa coming off consecutive wins. So theoretically, from a marketing and promotional standpoint, I think that the car was also very well marketed, and the hype and the concept of the Times Square thing, the theme. So I think it had all those. What will be the correct word?
Very good attributes.
Yeah. To be a very good show. As to what happened with the crowd or the ambience, I don't know. I also I agree to some extent that there was no buzz around
Yeah.
the premises of the event. Maybe it was because it was the access was limited. I don't know. I was not there, but certainly um, that was one of the cons of the event. It had no buzz, no feeling of excitement.
Yeah.
So, but I can tell you the production was awesome. I like the entrances, the taxi, the Batmobile. So I got to give props to Golden Boy, the re-up season, and all those components that came into play in order to go forward with this event. So props to them, man. It's to me, I rather I'm a proponent of new ideas, and if you want different results, you can be doing the same. So I got to take off my hat to them, to all the parties that went forward with this event.
100%. And I mean, speaking of new ideas, we've seen a few new initiatives from the WBO in terms of social media video series, a new website. What's happening
Yeah.
at the WBO? What else can you share with us that you guys are doing very differently?
So we announced today the first ever all-female amateur boxing show in Puerto Rico. We're going to institutionalize on a yearly basis an amateur boxing event, all female, in honor of Amanda Serrano. It's called the Amanda Serrano Championships. So the first event is going to be conducted in San Juan at the T-Mobile District, which is like a sports, entertainment, and restaurant venue type outdoor setting with a pink theme colors similar to the WBO Female World Championship belt. The winners are going to be granted an Amanda Serrano type of um, statue, and we're going to unveil a basically a almost a identical statue of Amanda Serrano physically wearing a WBO championship. The winners are also going to receive a financial compensation. It's going to be live streamed around the world. So the purpose is to provide those female amateur standouts a platform whereby they can showcase their skills and talents under the tutelage of Amanda Serrano as an inspiration, and they could, the concept serves as a platform in order for them to get inspired to eventually transition to the pro ranks. And it's going to be on a yearly basis, and we're going to make it extensive around the world subsequently on a year by year. So it's going to be on Friday the weigh-in and Saturday the fights. We got that announced today, and also probably by the end of this month we're going to do our first ever um, launch of the WBO programs 2025, which incorporates different type of incentives directly impacted to the fighters, whether that is financial literacy programs, legal advice, and investment educational tools. Um, what else? How to use social media properly to market their brand as fighters to those athletes that don't have a promotional backing, like Top Rank, Queensberry Premier Boxing Champions, Free Off Season, Matchroom, etc. Those second tier level fighters that maybe don't have those promotional powerhouses. The WBO can provide them the educational framework as to how to use social media correctly to promote their brand and their marketing skills. So we have a couple of programs running, and we're going to be announcing them shortly, in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Fantastic. On the media side, we've seen leading the way from this event and even events pre, but really this event is this gamification of promotion, heavy spending in marketing material, and the digitalization of a lot of the pre-event marketing and promotion. And it's almost like it's uplifted the whole industry, from the sanctioning bodies to the promotional organizations. Are we seeing a revolution here?
I think so. I think so. Through the usage of social media, content, access to information from any part of the world instantaneously, through a mobile device or a Apple TV or a laptop, iPad, whatever. Um, and marketing, it's either you adapt to the times or you're going to become irrelevant. So there's a lot of competition, incorporating new ideas. So I think that's the future, man. Either that at least that's what we're trying to do, at least from the WBO. I've assembled a new social media team. I bring them that I I brought them on board. I have at least two people here for the Vegas show, and we're trying to constantly upload content. Not only the providing the normal informative type of content of fighter A fighting fighter B, but also in-depth interviews, backstage, regulatory proceedings, information from those key figures in boxing, trying to stay relevant from a sanctioning body perspective. That's another thing that we're gonna be announcing shortly. It's a program called WBO Boxing 101 through social media. So we're going to be providing informative content to everyone through social media as to how a sanctioning body operates. From the basic stuff, some people don't have a clue. What exactly do we do? How do we run our business? How do we generate income? What do we do with the sanctioning fees? How do we approve a fight? How do we rank fighters? How do we issue resolutions? All those particularities of the framework from a sanctioning body perspective, we open our doors through our social media platforms and inform the fans, the public, and also the fighters. So that at least that's one of the main programs that I'm going to be promoting and marketing from a sanctioning body perspective.
Gustavo, since we last had you on the show, there has been the announcement of the TKO Boxing League,
Yeah,
and and the man that is pretty much behind, other than his excellency, is Dana White.
yeah,
One of the things that he said very clear is that he is not looking forward to work with the sanctioning bodies, and he wants to
yeah.
break down the sport and start again. How does the WBO position itself when power brokers like this come into the sport? What do you guys do to stay relevant, basically, and make sure that you're not impacted by people's ambitions?
Well, we can't control who enters or who exits the industry, right? Dana White is entitled to proceed as how he sees it appropriately, right? However, the structure of his business as a mixed martial arts perspective, it's total opposite as related to boxing. So he wants to create this league structure under the sport of boxing, which is at present time under the at least under U.S. law admissible. You have the federal law, which is called the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act, and the boxing in 1996, and thereafter the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act, which prohibits um, the league structure. You can't be a sanctioning body, you can't be a regulator, you can't be a promoter, you can't be doing ratings, having your own title. That's not permissible under the current legal framework. So, but he's going to try. He's got the resources, he's got the backing, he's got the experience from a sports and entertainment background. So they also need the fighters to give credibility to the brand, to their title, to their ratings. There's been some information already disclosed as to the possible purses to be paid or their pay schedule or salary structure that may have some objections as to the fighters under the UFC um, model. Remember, in the UFC, 80% of the revenue is for the promoter and 20 for the fighters. In boxing, is the opposite. It's 80% for the fighters, 20 for the promoters. So that may certainly have also some issues. Another factor is that TKO, as per the reports, is um, or is going to be operating under the condition of the backing of the Saudi government or the Public Investment Fund. So what happens when that faucet is closed, right? If you're dependent on that source of income, um, and thereafter that faucet is closed, so what's going to happen? So it remains to be seen. Um, they're going to create another title. So is that what boxing needs? I don't know. We have too many titles. It's going to be another title. They're going to start recruiting up and coming talent. Um, you know, we shall see. But competition always is. I'm open to competition because that puts us in I would say that represents another challenge. So at least from a sanctioning body perspective, I need to create some conditions within my business, whereas the fighters would say, from all the opportunities that are before me, I'm gonna go with the WBO because the WBO provides me the following: one, two, three, four, five. Instead of going TKO or going for another sanctioning body. So either we change from our organization, our structure, or the way we operate, or we're going to become irrelevant. So at least we can't just sanction a fight for a regional title, get a fighter rated, then the fighter moves up, fight for a title. We give him the title, or we help him out with some equipment or a boxing gym. That's all good and positive. But how can we incentivize directly the fighters, right? And you can question, well, the sanctioning bodies, why do they have to take 3% of a fighter's purse? That's a legitimate argument. I would I would raise that argument myself. And my response would be, well, we have some operational expenses, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But how can I impact directly the fighter that is paying that 3%? So that's what I'm trying to do. Either is through financial literacy, investment education, legal advice to the fighters, helping the fighters as a liaison in order for them to get opportunities outside of boxing uh, during their twilight of their career, helping some housing aid, marketing their brand. I don't know. I got a couple of ideas, but we have to do more for the fighters that impact them directly for their benefit, obviously.
There's commentary out there that Dana and his team are actively pursuing the Muhammad Ali Act and
Yeah, yeah,
and altering it in a way where um, it works for what they're building today.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on such activity?
Excuse me. Can you
That's
repeat the
right.
question?
There's commentary out there that Dana White and TKO Group are actively pursuing the reconstructing of the Muhammad Ali Act,
Repealing the act or amending the
yeah,
act. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, repealing or amending the act, right?
I'm
What?
I'm I'm
Yeah.
totally against that. It's better
Okay.
to, it's better to have a law in place and not need it than needing the law and not having the law itself. Now the question is the motive behind amending the act or repealing the act.
Yeah.
Obviously, the ulterior motive is to benefit their business. For example, the Ali Act currently has important provisions that benefit directly the fighters. For example, the disclosure forms as to all the monies that a promoter receives related to the bout of the fighter in question. So, or the monies that a fighter is deducted from his purse for purposes of a sanctioning body, and other particular provisions that benefit fighters uh, against exploitation, conflict of interest, etc. So those provisions are currently in place. Now the question is, are they enforceable? Well, in some jurisdictions, is a little bit more lax, in others, more strict. But the law is in place, and the law certainly has benefited many fighters. So I'm totally against repealing the act. Uh, Maybe an amendment that benefits the act, not reduce rights, right? Or makes it less
Yeah.
unenforceable to some extent.
But
There's always space for improvement because the law needs to adapt through the times, right? So,
but
but I'm against any motive or any initiatives to repeal the act.
but Gustavo, what would you say to those out there with the opinion of that? Where have the sanctioning bodies been all this time to further improve and make the act tighter? Because it's almost like the Ali Act came out and then there was no more further work on it.
Well, that's a remember um, the federal law requires it. You know, it has different provisions, and each provision has its own set of requirements to mention a word, right? If a fighter if a fighter is entitled to enforce its rights, is the fighter that has to enforce them accordingly, right? Or a commission or a promoter or a manager or advisor, etc. So it it, it depends. It also you got the each jurisdiction has a different. Let me see. Let me try to take off my lawyer hat. Every jurisdiction has like its own little book
Of course.
of rules, regulations, because states are sovereign and Indian reservations and territory. This is within the U.S. jurisdiction. The federal law at least overrides those. No, not overrides. At least provides some regulations that covers all states, territories, and Indian reservations as to establishing some set of norms, which is the purpose of the Ali Act, to at least have some legal framework or structure. The question is, why is it not enforced consistently in every jurisdiction? That's a question that I don't have the exact answer.
Now I was actually referring more to actually, when a legislation is put into place, the organizations in that industry, they lobby to further tighten that so it can't be broken, or it can't be, there's no workarounds to get around it. Because what we're seeing now is that with the Ali Act, it came in, but almost like nothing more was done in terms of tightening it right up.
I got
And
you. I got you. I
yeah,
got you.
and
I got
Dana's
you.
coming in now and saying, "Hello, I have a good friend who turns out to be the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump,
Yeah.
and there's a good chance that I can get some sort of executive order that can abolish or repeal the Ali Act." Now, my question is, where were the sanctioning bodies? Where were the promoters all this time? Why didn't they put the money and investment required to tighten up the act?
I don't have that answer to the question. That's the honest truth.
That's fair enough.
Now, if Dana White and the lobbyist, or I mean, or the yeah, the lobbyist or the firm that is lobbying in order to repeal the act, excuse me, or amend the act, once that comes in motion, I'm sure there's going to be lots of people from the boxing industry, whether it's sanctioning body presidents, promoters, managers, commissioners, arguing against repealing the act. I don't think the question is whether the act requires an amendment, right? Or adapting to the new trends, or maybe some changes, or incorporating XYZ. But repealing the act, I think most of the people are against it, because the current state of law benefits the fighters and other components of the industry through the act. The act primarily serves to benefit the fighters who are on the downside of the negotiation process. In other words, the promoters always have the more leverage than the fighters. That's why the act was put in place, because the fighters were being exploited.
Absolutely. All right. We've seen the WBC Grand Prix recently in Saudi Arabia. Great event. Many contenders from around the world came in, gave it a crack. He got some great exposure.
Yeah.
Are we likely to see anything from the WBO similar, other than the women's amateur tournament that you just mentioned?
Excuse me, I'm with a little cold.
That's all right. That's all right.
I didn't have a chance to see the tournament. I wished that my esteemed colleague Mauricio would have reached out to the other colleagues, and maybe a tournament involving all four sanctioning organizations would have worked. My fighter, I mean, the fighter that represents the BO, challenging the fighter that represents the BC and the IBF with the BA, or vice versa. I think that could have surely given a different feel, like the unifications. But every outlet or opportunity or platform that gives chance to the fighters getting exposure, sources, any type of income that would, or compensation that would benefit them, I have no objection. I would be open to it. So I didn't see the tournament, so I can't give you a feedback of how the fights were matched, or whether which fighters could surely reach world title contention. So beyond that, the only thing that I can mention at this time is, if it benefits the fighters, amen for that.
Jake Paul has gone all in on female fighting or female
Yeah.
boxing. They're doing the first ever all-female fight card. You mentioned Amanda Serrano before. She's going to be leading the card from the top. What are your thoughts on female boxing? Where's it going? And you've just mentioned that you guys are also investing in a female tournament, and Amanda's going to be the face of it. Where is female fighting going?
We're not investing in the tournament. We're sponsoring the tournament. So,
Yep.
female boxing is, man, and currently it's growing exponentially, and it's getting better. We're seeing more talent coming. Um, we're seeing more females trying to pursue greatness as to unifying the titles, pursuing to become undisputed. In female, contrary to the male, the unifications are easier to take place. Obviously, it's more because I would say the women are more keen in risking themselves to do the unifications. There's a likelihood that the cost of those particular fights are significantly less than in comparison to men. Jake Paul has become a trailblazer in giving women's higher pay scale, providing them a new platforms, new demographics with through Amanda Serrano with Netflix coming into the picture now. Amanda Serrano is the highest paid female boxer of all time. So what Jake Paul has done is sensational. Now adding through his promotional outlet all the females, but also, I mean, all the female key stars in Amanda, Bumgarner, the champions Scotney, Thursland, um, Shadaza Green. They're only missing Clarissa Shields from the big female players, right? Now, the one of the particular things that the fans need to know, or the general public, is in female boxing, you need your counterpart, your dance partner, in order for the fight to really get the exposure, the recognition, the distinction. Like Amanda Serrano and Katie, they're going for the third fight. Who knows if they have a fourth fight, right? Look, for example, Clarissa Shields, unfortunately, she's a great athlete, a superstar, a generational talent, but she doesn't have opponents. So if you don't have an opponent, unfortunately, you won't have that the same
The
um
stigma.
yeah, 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 or this or you won't be subject to the same compensation as to Amanda Serrano, right? Because again,
Mhm.
all those circumstances need to come into play or intertwine in order for, you know, to create the buildup, the marketing, generate the sponsors, the rights fee, etc. All those factors that come into play to sell the fight, and at the end, the fighters are ultimately benefited.
All right. Um, where are we now in terms of boxing? How are we moving forward in your opinion? What's there to come? Like where's the next level? Because this weekend we have a massive fight card. You're in Vegas because of a huge card. Want to tell us a bit more about that card, and then we'll
I think
elaborate on that.
I think you just answer your own question. We having three big shows like consecutively, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I had not seen that in I think since I've been in this game. Three big shows, like one after the other. Two on pay-per-view, and the third on linear, I think on ESPN and on the streaming platform, ESPN plus the undercard and the main event, the main card on linear television on ESPN. So I could say that boxing is at its best moment right now, and I would say that based on the fighters' purses, you would have at least supporting evidence as to where the business is, right? Because you wouldn't see a fight of like today's show in Times Square or tomorrow in Saudi, the Canelo, if it wasn't for the financial backing of the Saudis, right? Right,
Yeah.
and also Inoue coming to America when he sells out the Tokyo Stadium, putting 50,000 people over there. So I think, man, boxing is booming and getting better. Hopefully that trends continues for a couple of more years.
Would you say we are in the golden time of boxing? This is the golden age in recent times.
I really can't say. I haven't, there's different eras, right? At least in my era, I think this is one of the best moments in boxing. I can't
Absolutely.
tell you in the past because I didn't live that era. At least during my time, thus far, I think boxing is at its best right now, and you're seeing the best fighting the best, the unifications, the undisputed, the fights that the fans wanted to see. But that also depends on the money.
Question. Last one
Yeah.
from me. Where do you see, how much impact do you see sanctioning bodies having on the sport in 5 years' time?
In 5 years' time,
Yeah,
that's a great question. That's uncertain. It's like TV. What's going to happen with the current landscape of media and content? Are the streaming networks going to be the norm in 5 years? Who knows? Now, what I can tell you is that either the sanctioning bodies change or strive to change their paradigm, right, or their structure, or the way they're operating in order for them to keep relevant. Because titles, I think we've had the sanctioning bodies for over 100 years, right? So I think the titles will always be there, maybe a little bit less relevant or more relevant. It depends on the way we operate, the way we do, the, the way we enforce our rules. We really have to benefit the fighters themselves. There's a text here in the chat that says, why can't it be capped so sanctioning bodies don't favor boxers who earn more? Make it 3%, but cap it once that 3% gets to 50,000 US dollars. To answer the question, using that as a reference, the WBO has a cap, which means if a fighter like Canelo earns tomorrow $50 million, we have a cap, and that cap is 250. So regardless of how much Canelo earns, the sanctioning fee is $250,000. And it could be even less because it's 2% when you have a unified champion, which is Canelo's case. So, but we need to, I think we need to think differently and act totally differently as to the format that we've been, let me see, I would say,
the way you've been operating originally.
yeah,
I'll
because
say it for you.
we've been doing the same thing for 30 plus years, man. We
Correct.
can't just sanction a fight, a regional title, then we give you a shot you become a champion. We recognize you with the belt. That's good, man. But does it really benefit the fighters directly? Well, some may say it does. A regional title for a second tier level fighter may surely be a life changing moment from a professional and maybe economic point of view. Maybe that fighter receives other sources of income as a result of winning a regional title. Who knows, right? But that's not the norm. It's the exception. Also, those fighters like Canelo, Crawford, Inoue, Fury, Stevenson, Loma, Beterbiev, Bivol, Canelo, Munguia, Crawford, those are the exceptions that they reach a level whereby they don't need, the titles give them distinction, legitimacy, respect, credibility, but they really don't, they're at that level. But certainly the titles help them pave the way, get the recognition, the credibility, the aggregate value to what a title means. I'm not saying titles are not important. To the opposite. But at least from the WBO under my presidency, I'm striving to be having more affirmative, proactive approach to that fighter that pays the fee, benefit him directly.
Gustavo, the biggest problem that I've heard with the sanctioning bodies is that these closed off box that people don't know enough about what they do and why they do and how they
Yeah,
do things.
yeah,
Now,
that's true.
what you're doing now is you're bringing that transparency that's never been brought before. When did we ever have access to a sanctioning body president like we do now to yourself through X and other platforms? You made yourself available. People were talking to you. I see you online. You're talking on different shows. You're very accessible, and you're working your backside off. Now, we need to see more of that as fans to understand the value of these sanctioning bodies because there's
Yeah.
this misconception that they come take their fee and go, right? But really, that's not the case. And I'm not just saying this to you because you're on my show. I'm just
No, no,
being
no. I agree.
really honest with you here. It's very very important, and you're the only one that's doing it right now. Is that you guys are transparent with boxing fans? These programs that you are introducing, these media programs, are going to be what give boxing fans that insight to what the WBO adds value to the
Yeah.
sport and how they do it.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. At least that's my view of how things should be conducted. I'm of the opinion that a president of a sanctioning body should be accessible at least to the extent that he's, uh, you know, um, possible, right?
Yeah,
Because we owe ourselves to the boxers, to the fans, to the general public, to the other components of the industry, and we need to be fully transparent and tell the truth. And we have to inform the fans, educate the fans, provide them the access to information as to the way we operate, why we we take these actions or we render these rulings, so the fans could understand exactly what we do.
yeah.
And at least that's the way I was brought up. My former boss, former president, my mentor, Paco Alcalcel, he always instructed me to be fully transparent, honest, uh, you know, committed to my word, and that's also my style as a professional, and not only from a professional standpoint but also personal. And I have to answer the questions to the best of my abilities. And if I make a mistake, I should accept it and correct the mistake and just go forward because we're not perfect. We've made mistakes, but we have to also do things correctly, consistently adhere to our rules, incorporate some changes, be open to criticism, and I think we'll be okay, man. I think we'll be, but at least under my presidency, I'm striving to be all access, full transparency, try to answer every question, be available for any type of interview, regardless if it's ESPN or a blogger from a starting blogger in boxing media, whoever it is. If I have the time and the space, I'll try to do my best and answer the questions. Like
One last one. Yeah,
there
our
there's
friend
two
Liam.
there there's two questions there.
Yeah,
Liam, what about ordering unification fights? Liam, we from a sanctioning body perspective, I don't have the jurisdiction, which means that's a legal term. I don't have the authority to order a champion from the BO to fight a champion from another sanctioning body. I don't have that power within my rules. The unifications can only be conducted when the fighters agree voluntarily amongst themselves. That's the only way. I cannot force my champion to fight the champion of another sanctioning body. That's the answer to that question. He also has another good question. Keep other champions in your rankings and order unifications. I cannot leave a champion from another sanctioning body rated in my rankings because he's occupying a position that certainly um, impedes an up and coming fighter from occupying. Because if he's a champion under my ratings, he's technically not available to
yeah,
fight one of my champions because I cannot order my champion to face another champion. So it's a similar answer to the previous question. Very refreshing, even if you don't fully agree with Gustavo. At least you're willing to be transparent. 100%. I can give you a response, and maybe you disagree, but at least I'm going to be open and subject to being questioned and criticized, and but at least you'll respect me, which is what I'm trying to bring to the game.
All right, Mr. Gustavo, you've been very, very generous with your time. It's getting late over there. I firstly want to thank you very much for joining me
My
on the
pleasure,
show.
man.
You got any parting words for us?
Have a good night. I'm going to bed. I'm exhausted, my man.
Take care, everyone. Thank you all
Okay, my man. Take
joining
care.
us on Raw Sport.
Always a pleasure. Take care.